While I was at the bank, all my customers did real estate. They just always made a ton of money in real estate. Here's the thing that you learn over a long period of time. I went through the financial crisis. I've been through a lot of cycles. And what's really important is you don't over leverage that property.
You're not the first person to do it, so just copy what somebody else did or ask somebody else, because when you try to suffer in silence, it's not going to end well for you.
Pay for education. If you can afford it, pay for it. Like, you can pay for it with money or you can pay for it with time. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Commercial Real Estate Blueprint Podcast. We have a special guest today. We have Ken Gee. He's the founder of KRI Partners, and we're super excited. This is definitely going to be a different viewpoint from a lot of the people we've had on the show. He's doing a lot of private equity stuff, and he's been in commercial real estate for a very, very long time, so I think he's going to have a lot of great insights for us. Thank you so much for coming on the show, Ken.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about your story and how you got into commercial real estate.
Yeah, so grew up in Toledo, Ohio. I'll be brief, don't worry. I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, got my undergrad from the University of Toledo, and moved to Cleveland. Became a commercial lender, so I spent 5 years as a commercial lender while I was pursuing my master's degree at Case Western Reserve. While I was at the bank, all my customers did real estate. They just always made a ton of money in real estate. But and I always tried to help them, right? I had a financial background. I thought, let me help them, give them some advice, things like that. But what I learned was they didn't care what their banker said. They cared what their CPA said. And so oddly enough, I thought, well, that's really what I wanted to be, or I thought. So that's why I went to school at night at Case Western Reserve, became a CPA, moved to Deloitte. So spent 7 years at Deloitte on the tax side, doing M&A work, private equity work. The Cleveland office of Deloitte had a massive real estate tax practice. Like, if I told you who our clients were, you would know them. I mean, they're all household names. So I had two back-to-back employers that just real estate was everywhere. So, but I was a CPA and thought I had it all nailed down, right? I did everything I thought I was supposed to do, got a good job. Felt like I was successful. My kids were really, really young. In fact, my daughter had just been born, and I used to do her feeding at 3 o'clock in the morning. And it was cool. If you have a daughter, father-daughter thing, 3 o'clock, I mean, it's cool time, right? Very cool time. And until I realized that I'm an idiot, because my daughter, a father time is 3 o'clock in the morning. And that was because I was working so much. And so that just didn't sit well with me. So I set out on this process to change it, right? Because, I mean, who wants to do everything they're supposed to do, be successful, but not see your family grow up? That just really wasn't cool. So took me a year and a half, went to a lot of apartment association meetings, did a lot of networking with the speakers and so on. Ended up buying 3 small deals, like 28 units, 24 units, and a 22 unit building. Sold them 3 years later, made $500,000. Like, this is back in the late 90s. I was like, wow, what did I just do? Like $500,000. I had never seen that much money at one time in my life ever. And that sort of solidified this real estate thing is for real. Not only can other people do it, the rich people do it, but I could figure it out as well. And I stayed at Deloitte for another year and a half before I did finally jump ship and just commit to real estate. And that's what I've done ever since.
That's cool. Yeah, I can relate to a father-daughter thing. I have a 4.5-year-old daughter, and she's our oldest, actually. We have 2 more. That's like one of the primary motivations for me to be in commercial real estate is to spend more time with my family, whether, with my brokerage business and then also investing business. It's like, that is the core reason. It's like, I'm sure I could make more money working more hours during the day. I know I could, but I don't want to, because I want that time with them, especially while they're little. So that's like one of the most important and most motivating things, I think, for a lot of people who have family. So that's awesome. And then, it works.
Yeah. My daughter's now grown. My kids are grown, and I never missed her basketball games. We traveled all over the eastern half of the country playing AAU basketball, and it works. It was the right move. So awesome. I know you enjoyed that as well, I'm sure.
Absolutely. And you touched on another thing too, just like the power we've talked about all the time of commercial real estate. The fact you made $500,000 of 3 apartment buildings is crazy.
Yeah.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. Like, it was just unbelievable. Like, no, you would have told me 10 years before that I would make $500,000 on the side. Like, I was still working at Deloitte. I would have told you were nuts. No chance. But it happens, and it happens every day. I'm sure you know that.
What did you do? I mean, I assume I know, but like, for the people listening, what did you do to those apartment complexes to be able to sell them for such a big gain in that short amount of time?
Yeah. So I would love to sit here and tell you that, it was a grandiose plan, and I knew it, and I had it all that mapped out, and I knew what I was going to do. do, but that's not what happened. See, today, podcasts like this are here to teach people what you should do. That really didn't exist back then. In fact, I'm just embarrassed to tell you, I didn't even understand what value add meant. So I bought my first property, and the rents include, this is nuts. The numbers are nuts. The rents were $415 a month for this property. I mean, that's low. They were all one bedrooms, and that included heat. Now we're talking about Cleveland. I mean, that's just silly. So I bought this thing, and the person on site, I had to buy a 28 unit building because I had to have something big enough because I couldn't go there and fix stuff. So I had this lady, she lived on site. She got a rent credit. She was wonderful. She showed the apartments. And then shortly after I bought it, she would send me the credit apps, right? The applications. And I'm like, oh my God, horrible credit, evictions. I'm like, man, this, what? I remember kind of almost panicking, thinking, this is, how the hell am I going to put a good person in this unit? I can't even get them to apply, right? And so I met this lady. I don't remember how I met her, but her name was Karen. She was with the Shaker Heights, one of the agencies that are associated with the city. And she said, Ken, let me meet you at the property. Let me just help you. I said, okay. I didn't have any real expectation. She walked in. She said, Ken, these kitchens are from the 1930s. That's when the building was built. Nobody wants to live in a 1930s kitchen. I said, okay. I said, well, what do you think I should do? She says, you got to upgrade it. You got to renovate it. I said, well, how much is that going to cost? I mean, the story's just stupid. And she said, oh, probably about $5,000. I said, Karen, I borrowed my down payment. Like, where the hell you think I'm going to get $5,000 to do this unit? She goes, look, I'm just telling you. She said, you build it, they will come. I said, oh, okay, I'll give it a try. So I borrowed the $5,000, renovated a unit. Now, the next unit we rented was for $599. It was to a Case Western Reserve grad student. I was like, oh my gosh, she just changed my life, right? This wonderful woman who, unfortunately, I don't think she's with us anymore, but she taught me what value add was. Now, I'm embarrassed to admit that out loud, that I didn't understand that whole concept. So, $415 to $599. So now deal number 2, I'm like, wait a minute, I got to do this smarter. So I found a lender who would help me pay for the improvement. So deal number 2, I said, okay, here's where rents are. Here's where I think I can get them. Now I'm starting to implement a value add plan intentionally. And they said, look, if you do this, you get a lease. You spend the money, you show us the invoices, you let us inspect the unit to see that you're not lying and you really did rent it. We'll give you the money for the improvement. It's like, this is cool. I like this, right? That was deal number 2. So now I figured out how to do that. Now, deal number 3, I kind of fell into because it was owned by the Development Corp, the Shaker Square Development Corp back then. So what they do is they buy houses or properties that are really in bad shape. This one was almost condemned. They put a ton of money into it, and it was gorgeous. I mean, it was featured in Cleveland Magazine. It was just beautiful. They did a really nice job on it. They wanted to sell it, and so 5 years in, they said, yeah, we can't hold this thing. So they picked 5 people in the neighborhood to buy this thing. And they said, okay, you 5 can bid on it because we like you as owners. We think you'll take care of the property, but it can't be below, I remember the number, they can't be below $700,000. I said, oh, okay. Well, what did all 5 of us do? We didn't collaborate or collude. We all came in right around $700,000. So first guy, he took a whack of the deal, didn't like the garage. He passed on it. So I was the second guy that got it. I didn't have to put any money down because I had met through my networking an attorney who introduced me to a banker. Said, Ken, I got $1 million appraisal on this. All I care about is that I'm at 70%. That's all I need. I don't care what you paid for it. So I literally bought the property with nothing.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
A whole bunch of money. So those are the first 3 deals. But I'm sure you heard story after story after story. Every deal has a little story like that when you really dive in, you're like, wow, that's interesting, right? How did you pull that off? And that's how we did it.
That's amazing. So I wanted to go back to the first deal and talk a little bit more about how you borrowed the down payment, how you found the deal, and how it sounds like you did like a little bit of construction loan too. So if you don't mind speaking a little bit more to that for those that have never done this. Yeah.
So on the first deal, now this is the 90s.
Yeah.
I found it by going through the newspaper and looking at the for sale ad. I mean, they don't do that anymore, right? Obviously, but that's what I did. I literally started calling on everybody that was selling an apartment. They'd have the little apartment section to be 10, 15, 20 listings. And I called on them So I called on this one. Now, as it turned out, the seller was a super nice guy. His name's Doug Price. He owns a lot of units in Cleveland. He's just a real legitimate, honest guy, right? Mm-hmm. And so we agreed on a price, and then he introduced me to a lender that he had a relationship with who helped me, right? So Doug took back a note for 10%, and the other 10%, I'm like, all right, how am I going to get this? Well, I don't want your listeners to think that borrowing money to invest is a good idea. I don't want to tell anybody to do that, but that's what I did. I borrowed my half. My half of the down payment was $35,000, and I put it on my line of credit on my house because I didn't have the money. That's just ridiculous, but I didn't. And so I went in with my in-laws on the other half. I mean, they knew that I really didn't know what I was doing, but they're like, we know where you live. If you rip us off, we'll come and get you, right? This is basically the way it went. So we put that together, and then that renovation money, I mean, literally it was just credit cards. That's what it was. And the cash flow of the building, right? Because we didn't take distributions on that first building because we wanted to invest back in it. So there was no quote unquote construction loan on that first deal. That's how we financed it. And then we sold it a year later. So I don't remember how the breakout goes of that $500,000 between the three buildings, but I do know that my in-laws put in 35 and 3 years later, they got back 100. I was a hero for them then. Right.
What it sounds like, you knew that you wanted the deal and you had the confidence or at least the guts to do it. Right. And then,
let's talk about that, but go on.
At least the guts to do it. Right. Because a lot of people wouldn't like credit cards. That's insane. Like I would never do that. But you did it and you went for it. But hey, man, I lost train of thought on that one.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about how stressful that was. Do you mind? I mean, because this was a life-changing event for me.
Yeah. We want the real raw experience. We don't want the sugar-coated thing. That's
give it to us. Yeah.
I'm an open book. So I had this back then. Everything you did, you basically signed personally. So my mortgage was $460,000 on a $575,000 purchase. I had to sign personally on that loan. So I can remember standing in my kitchen thinking to myself, literally pacing, thinking, man, I hope I don't screw this up. Because if I do, you know what they do? They're coming after you, right? They're coming after your house, your kids, your dog, everything, right? And I remember the stress being the most stressed I've ever been in my life. I felt like I had a golf ball in my throat. Think about that. I mean, that's stress, right? I've never felt that feeling since, but I pushed through it anyway, right? Probably at that point, I really didn't have a choice, right? I didn't feel like I had a choice. So I pressed on. And that's hard to do. I mean, it is really stressful to do that kind of stuff. What I did though to help me get comfortable is I hired, because remember, I didn't have any validation, right? Like we have a whole education side of our business that I can help somebody and validate their deal, right? Because I've been doing it now a long time. I felt like, man, if I could just have somebody with a clue look at this thing and tell me I'm not nuts. So I found this attorney in one of those meetings and I said, hey, can you just be my attorney on this deal and kind of just look at it? He owned 4,000 units, so he was in the business.
Yeah, he was in the business.
He was. He 4, sure was.
4,000 units,
4,000
man.
That's a lot, right? So he charged me $3,000. Like that was a lot of money back then. It's a lot now, but it's even more back then. But he looked and, I don't know that he really did much as an attorney. I don't want to diss him, but he got me through the transaction. But what he said to me was, Ken, I know this deal. I know the seller. Everybody knows each other in these businesses. And he said, he's an honest guy. I know the building. He said, you're probably going to make $100,000 in a few years. I said, his name was Howard. I said, Howard, are you serious? He goes, yeah, I think you'll make $100,000. Right. He says that very casually, right? Like, this is another $100,000. I'm like, dude, if I can make $100,000 on this, that's awesome. So I had that validation that helped me through that, right? Because now somebody with experience, and right, I've always believed the best advice you get is the advice you pay for, right? Mm-hmm. He's not a sales guy. He's got nothing in the game other than, now maybe he had a relationship with a seller. I doubt it, right? It wasn't enough for him. But he said, I think you'll do okay. And he wasn't wrong.
Yeah. No, I think that's so important to talk about the reality of how stressful these things are. It's like we talk a lot on this podcast about how you can make a couple $100,000 on a deal, which is definitely true in commercial real estate. It's not like it's far-fetched. It's very, very possible, but it comes with a lot of stress, a lot. So like we closed on 2 industrial buildings in the last 6 months, which were our first 2 deals we did. And one of them was, I own the majority of because I 1031'd a personal residence into it. Mm-hmm. But we had the agreement that we would be able to market the property while under contract on it. And so 4 months, I gave myself a long time, 4 months. And 4 months we were cold calling like every day, like we got to lease this building. If we don't lease this building, I went from a $275,000 house to $800,000 commercial building, and it was seller financing 10% down. So, it was a $720,000 mortgage, which is a $4,500 a month payment. And I was like, if we don't lease this thing, when we close, I'm going to have a $4,500 payment on top of all my other personal expenses and stuff. And I was like, so I was in that position that you were in, where I was, having trouble sleeping at night, thinking, man, we're not going to be able to lease this deal. All the doubts, all the insecurity. I was like, maybe we shouldn't do it. We should just sell it to somebody else. But, I had a lot of people I talked to and consulted with, and a lot of people were like, and Jesse helped a lot too. Just kind of that, me and him talked a lot about it, and he went back and forth like, maybe we should, maybe we shouldn't. But we talked to a lot of people who were very experienced, and they were like, you should do the deal. And really kind of what solidified that we should just do it is a lot of people tried to buy it off of us. Yeah. So we're like, we know it's a really good deal. So, thankfully, thank God, that we ended up leasing it the day after we closed. And I had a plan too. I had a plan where we would bring in an equity partner who would cover the payment for a certain amount of time until, like if we ended up needing more funds, they would come in and get a portion of the equity. But I think it's important to talk about the reality of how stressful these situations can be, because it can be a lot. And some people can't handle that. I mean, I almost couldn't. I almost passed on it, but ultimately at the end of the day, I was like, if I don't do this deal, it's going to do a lot more damage to me mentally, in my confidence of like, I'm not going to, I would just have that shaken confidence of, man, I didn't do that deal. And then I would always have that regret. And it turned out to be okay. And I'm glad it did.
Yeah.
I will tell you, the best work throughout my career I've always done when my back is up against the wall like that. Because what happens is I refuse to fail. I just do, right? I'm like, no, it's not happening. Not on my watch. I'm going to figure it out, right? And that's what you did. That's what I've learned. Now, I've been doing this for 27 plus years, and I'm here to tell you, successful people take that approach. Unsuccessful people end up bailing, right? You're right. Maybe the pressure's too much or whatever. But what I want people to do now, if, your listeners are relatively new to the game, is equip yourself with so much knowledge so that you can go through this process and be as prepared as you can be. I was always way behind the eight ball early on. I didn't understand what was next. I didn't know what I needed to do next. And so as a result, everything was like a 911 fire drill, right? But now I know it doesn't have to be that way. If you understand what's next and what's ahead, you can prepare and be ready and really reduce that stress level. You can. You can't eliminate it, but you can mitigate all these stresses. You really can if you just take the time to seek the help, right? There's a lot of people out there that can help you understand this business, and I strongly encourage you to take advantage of it. I didn't have it, and it was just harder. I mean, it took me a lot longer to get to where I am today. Yeah. It would have happened way, way sooner.
And also, like, just knowing, like, to piggyback on that, just knowing the numbers or the market. So, like, we knew that market very well because we'd been studying it. We've been helping the company we work for buy deals. And so on paper, we're like, we know for a fact this is a good deal. Like, we know it. So that was also another push that helped us go, move on with the deal. But if you're kind of just guessing and you don't know, and then you have all that uncertainty and doubt and stuff, that's at least one thing you can be sure of. Study the market, see what things are selling for, see what things are leasing for, see who's bought stuff, look at the velocity, the market velocity, all that stuff, and see if people are still doing deals, and all that stuff can help you kind of have a backbone to that. But something I wanted to ask you about, or not just gloss over, because this is something we used on the other deal we did, which I think is a massive value add. When I first started, and even still recently, I have trouble with the mindset of thinking, oh, if I buy this deal, I have to come up with all the down payment. And then, like you said, oh, you have to renovate this. It's going to cost 15 grand. It's like, well, I have to come up with that money. Well, I don't have 15 extra grand to throw at this deal, but lenders will do construction loan, or they call loan to cost. So, like, for example, one of the deals we bought, they did 80% loan to cost. So let's say let's just make it super simple. You buy a deal for 100 grand and it's going to cost you another 100 grand to renovate the deal. They'll lend you 80% of $200,000. So you only have to come up with 20% of $200,000, which then you can go to your friends and family, mother-in-law, whoever it is, and borrow that for the down payment, give them a big portion of the equity, and do all of the deal with none of your own money. And then you can stabilize it and create the value. And that's where the beauty is. But I wanted to just not gloss over the fact that I have trouble reminding myself that you can get construction loans in these things. We have yet to find a deal to where somebody said they'll do 100%. One of the lenders we work with says like 80% is like the max we can do regardless.
Yeah.
But I have heard people say there are lenders out there who, if it appraises at $1 million and they need 70%, you're buying for 700, then they'll do it. So that's another cool thing too. You can get a deal actually 100% with a bank.
It is a lot harder to find that though. 27 years ago, it was a lot easier to find that. Now it just is more difficult. It just is. Yeah. But it is possible. You're right. The number one thing that I want people to be really careful with though is just, here's the thing that you learn over a long period of time. I went through the financial crisis. I've gone, I've been through a lot of cycles. And what's really important is you don't over leverage that property, right? Be careful. Don't over leverage it. Be conservative, because if the market turns against you for a while, all you got to do is wait out whatever's going on. So we do multifamily. That's all we do. And we do that because I can't figure out how to make people needing a place to live go away, right? I like that. I know that's probably going to come back because people do need a place to live as long as I'm in a good market. I just got to be able to wait it out and not lose the property. So, we're talking a lot about leverage. Early on in my career, I mean, if you look at our track record on our website, we had ridiculous returns, like in the thousands of the percent. But it's because we way over leveraged stuff. We didn't use investor money back then. Now, I mean, we raise, our current fund is like $18 million to deploy. It's already pre-raised for deals, but we won't leverage stuff up like that now because it's not, it's other people's money. And so I just wanted to make sure that everybody was clear. Just be super careful you don't over leverage. And I know you know what you're doing, so I'm sure you're fine, but be super careful when you're buying.
Yeah, I think the best way to sum up the last like 5 minutes or so is kind of with your success formula, which I want you to tell us about in a second. But we're like the first people to buy a vacant industrial building. You're not the first person to buy a multifamily deal. I think we say this all the time in the military. Like, you're not the first person to do it, so just copy what somebody else did or ask somebody else, because when you try to suffer in silence, it's not going to end well for you. You got to ask people else. Like how the heck do I get through this? So
I'm reading the Millionaire. It's called The Millionaire Real Estate Agent. It's a much older book, but it's by Gary Keller, who's the guy who founded Keller Williams, which is obviously a wildly successful real estate firm. And in that book, one of the quotes I just read literally yesterday, so it's funny you say that, is success leaves clues. And it's talking about that. You're not the first person to do it. So just look at what successful people are doing and follow them.
Yeah, that's right.
One other small note too, I would hear a lot of people saying, oh, my portfolio is at 30% leverage. And you're like, wow, that's crazy. Like, did you just buy it with a bunch of cash? But in commercial real estate, if you buy a deal vacant and then you lease it and then the value goes way up, now your leverage goes down because the value is much higher. So that's one thing to note. That's one thing to note. But I wanted to pivot the conversation, and you're in private equity, and that's what you do now. So I wanted to I personally don't know as much as I should about it. What's like the major difference explain private equity to somebody who is, who doesn't know anything about it. What's the big difference between private equity and then what a lot of other real estate people are doing? Yeah.
So there's a number of ways. And it really, if you were to look at a life cycle of a typical real estate firm that continues to grow, we start out using your own money. We did that for 10 years. Then we flipped to a syndication model. Now, remember, I had this syndication private equity model in my head because I was at Deloitte for 7 years and saw it big time with a lot of people. So we started out syndicating. So syndicating means you go find the deal and then you go raise some money in about your 45-day period. Well, if you've gone through that process, it is really stressful. Right? It's almost as stressful as buying your first deal because you got to raise a whole bunch of money in a very short period of time. I mean, early on, I can remember really getting stressed out about raising $1 million or $1.5 million. I thought, man, so now what happens? Now, remember, we're in Florida. So everybody wants to be in Florida. All the syndicators want to be in Florida. So when we offer on a property, we're one of 30. Well, how do I differentiate myself other than begging and paying up, right? How do I get picked to do the deal? So we were successful on some syndications, and I thought, this is ridiculous. I got to flip this around. So we went to the fund model. Now I had enough experience. I had a track record. People could look and see what we have done, say, okay, you probably have figured this out. And so they give us the money up front. That's the fund model. You raise the money first, then you use that money to go find good deals. And that's what we have done. We're on fund number 4. And that's the biggest difference. It's harder to raise money that way if you don't have any experience because most people won't give you a blank check. But, we've got right now in fund number 4 about $18 million to deploy. And so now in this market, when we talk to brokers and we talk to sellers, there's no question. Did KRI raise the money? Well, they've already got it. It's already in the bank. So now we're we have definitely differentiated ourselves in that buyer pool.
Yeah.
So that's why a lot of people will revert to that. Now, having said that, I mean, it's, having a fund and using the private equity model is more difficult, because if you don't have a track record, most logical people will not give you their money. They want to see the deal. They want to touch it. They want to underwrite it alongside of you and everything else early on. But there's nothing wrong with that. You got to do what you got to do to get to that point where you can grow. Some people never stop being syndicators, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's just I couldn't figure out how to differentiate ourselves and make us a stronger buyer without overpaying or paying up. And I just got tired of the stress on every single deal, because it wears on you after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Our firm is in the process of kind of like evolving to that right now. Me and Graham were talking about it this week, actually. We're like, how different is it going to be when you cold call somebody and say, hey, we're buying real estate, blah, 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 blah. We have a portfolio. Instead of saying, hey, we have a fund. We want to buy your property. It makes you sound a little bit different.
Yeah.
A lot bit different. Let's say a lot of bit different. All right.
And to clarify too, not me and Jesse. The firm we work for, City Platt, they are kind of like in that life cycle, like you said. They started off kind of using friends, family money, then they started raising investor money, and now they're eventually getting to where I guess they're like 6 years or maybe 7 years now. They're flipping to wanting to do the fund. We're in the process of working on that stuff. So it'll be exciting. And our job as brokers there is we can go out and find these deals. But I had a question. Are you competing with people like Grant Cardone and stuff down in Florida, or?
Yeah, we did. The last deal we bought, it's a 102 unit new deal in St. Pete. I know they were going after, but he doesn't care about 100 units. I don't think he tried very hard, but it was nice to know that we were at least competing with a billionaire, and we won. But most of the time, no. I mean, he's buying 90, 100, $110 million deals. We're just not there. We prefer 60 and under. So, 60. He's 60 million and under.
Okay, I didn't know. Yeah, I thought.
Sorry,
units or not.
Yeah. So we don't really run up against Grant, but he's he's obviously a billionaire. He's got a lot of money behind him. And last I checked, I think he'd raised over $1.5 billion for deals. We're not there yet. I mean, that's just an insane amount of money.
That is.
So how does your firm, like, how do you, and you don't have to get into specifics, but how do you, as the manager of everything, the KRI partners, how do you make money? Is it through acquisition fees? I know that is your split typically like 20%, 80%, 30%, 70% on the GP/LP side? Like, how do you guys structure that to where you can keep the lights on as you're doing these deals? And then I assume you get some of that cash flow and stuff. But
yeah, great question. So first of all, we invest in our own deals right alongside our investors. That's really, really important, because it's hard to justify asking someone else to put in money in a deal that you don't want to put money in. So that's number one. Number two, there's a lot of different fee structures out there. Some people do 60-40, 70-30. Some people do 2-3% acquisition asset management fees. We are not here for the fees. So what I believe is in simplicity. Mm-hmm. So we're straight 80-20, right? I don't know anybody that goes below 80-20. That means you get your capital back, and then we split the profits 80-20, 80 to the investors, 20 to us. If there's no profit, we get nothing, right? So we're heavily incented. What I try to do is line up our goals with our investors. So I never have to worry about us. All I worry about is the investor, and we just come along by definition, right? We get drug along with it. Mm-hmm. Now, on the fee side, we're not here for fees. We're just not. Our fees are 1% acquisition, 1% asset management fee, 1% disposition. I mean, those are low fees. Yeah. Most people are at 2. Most people are at 2. But I don't want to give investors reasons to not want to invest with us, right? So I don't overfee it, because that comes right off the top. I don't need 2%. I just don't want to lose money, because I got to pay people to do all this work.
Yeah.
And number 3, when I have an investor meeting, I don't want to spend half the meeting helping them try to figure out and understand some really complicated structure like that. Why do that? Why you should be talking about the deal. Yeah. Not how it is that you're going to make more money than it. Don't. Just keep it simple. 1%, 80-20. That's it.
Yeah. And is there
about 5 seconds to figure that out?
Is there like a preferred return in that too, or is it just 80-20 across everything?
Yeah, there's not a preferred return. We used to do preferred returns. We stopped doing preferred return for a couple of reasons. The first is, let me just give you an example. Let's pretend like that Levi deal. We bought it at just under a 6 cap, but let's pretend like it was a 5 cap. All right. And so I have this awesome deal. It's in a great area. I believe it's going to be a killer, right? Most of the money we make in real estate is on the appreciation, not the cash flow. Yeah. So Now I have a choice if I have a preferred return in place. Let's pretend like my preferred return is 6%. So here I go. You're going to invest in my deal, and there's a 6% preferred return, and I go buy Levi. In year one, it's 5%. You're like, Ken, well, you said 6. You're giving me 5. Well, yeah, but the other percent is going to accrue, and you'll get it. Yeah, but you told me I was going to get 6. That's what you told me. You told me I had a preferred return of 6%. So what happens is you and I start out on the wrong foot because now you're frustrated. Even though I explained it, you heard 6%, and that's what you internalized. And then I didn't deliver that on day one. Mm-hmm. So that's obviously a bad scenario. Okay, so how do I solve that? Well, maybe I go into my pocket and get the 1% and pay it to you. Well, I mean, that's just stupid. You can't do that. You'll go broke, right? We didn't get into this business to go broke. So that's a bad scenario. So what's my third option? Pass on the deal because I can't do it with my investors to make them happy. Mm-hmm. That's a problem, right? Preferred returns can put handcuffs on guys like me because I have to pass on this deal. That's an incredible deal, but I can't do it in a way that makes sense for my investors because that's how you should always look at this. So now if I don't have a preferred return, they have a different expectation in their mind. It's real. They understand, and that's why we stopped doing the preferred. Now, a lot of new people in the business still do preferreds, but I just want to invest. If they're investing passively, just be careful because you can really get yourself into a corner as a sponsor with a preferred return. You just can.
So if there's are most of the deals you're buying, then are you I mean, obviously everybody wants cash flow, but like you said, we've definitely seen that the appreciation's where you really make the money. So are you going after deals that don't even cash flow?
No.
I mean, maybe not don't cash flow, but like you're going after deals mostly for appreciation. So if there is cash flow on these deals, is that also just split 80-20?
Yeah. There has to be cash flow, right? Yeah. Because why would someone buy something with no cash flow? See, that's one of the reasons you buy real estate is there's legitimate cash flow coming out of this business. So we're going in, we're 4 to 6%. Our average, our target average cash flow, cash on cash is 6% over the life of the fund. But we might start out at 4, we might start out at 5. And so to answer your second question, yes, it's 80-20 on all the money. So on a capital event, which means we sell or refinance, you get all your capital back and then we split it 80-20. And then those smaller cash flow distributions, we split those 80-20 as well. But that's not where the money is. The money is in the appreciation.
Got it.
Because what you don't want, what's really important, and investors sometimes don't think this through, and I'm not saying that we would do this, but pretend like you have a sponsor that has 5 deals. 2 of them have preferred returns and they're maybe 6%, but they're only performing at 3 or 4. And now this accrued continues to pile up on them. And they're like, man, I'm never going to make money on this deal. And his other 3 deals, they're cash flowing just fine. So what happens, this is where you got to be careful. So now you have a sponsor who needs to spend time on those 2 deals that aren't quite up to the 6%, but he really wants to spend time on the ones that are making money so he can make more money. You see what happens? So this preferred return can really backfire on investors. I really feel strongly about this. I didn't used to feel that way until I've had to pass on so many deals because of this preferred return. I'm like, this is ridiculous. I'm hurting myself. This doesn't even make sense to me. And the reality of it is, if there's a 6% preferred return on an 80-20 split, if that deal does 7.5% over the life of the loan, the preferred return is meaning,less. It doesn't matter. And 7.5% over the life of a deal for us, that's a failure.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
So I wanted to go back to, for our audience, looking at our first deal, and I think you have a really good example, but I wanted to understand, like, what do you think stops people from buying their first deal?
Yeah. They know in the back of their mind they really don't understand. They can't get through that stress. They don't have the confidence. It's actually the reason we started our entire education side of our business. I'm a CPA by background, and I know that if you know the numbers, everything changes. Everything changes because now you understand. The broker can no longer BS you. You understand how the lender is going to underwrite it. You understand how to explain it to an investor. So we start all of our people out in our underwriting course because you got to know the numbers. So when you know the numbers, I can sit in front of you as an investor. You can ask me any question you want. I know the numbers. I dove into the details, right? I didn't gloss over them at 30,000 feet, which a lot of people try to do. Yeah. So what happens when they don't dive into the details, they don't understand, they don't know the whys, they know they don't know. And they're worried because most people are reasonable people and don't want to put themselves in a situation where they're going to lose money. So what do? They pass because they can't get over the stress losing money. And rightly so. They should pass if they don't know what they're doing. They should not ask for somebody else's money if they don't know what they're doing. So that's the thing, right? When you know what you're doing, you become more confident, right? And then when you become more confident, now you can act with conviction. Remember, what did you say about your deal? You knew it was a good deal.
Yeah.
Like it was not even a question in your mind.
Right.
But you knew it because you dove in, got into the details, understood the market, right? And you knew the numbers.
We knew on a worst case scenario what we could rent it for. And that was like worst case. And, we obviously were going to try to push to what the rent rate is going to be, right?
Sure.
But at a worst case, we were still going to cash flow pretty decently. And it was going to be a good deal. Another question I had for you is, I just got out of the military and I talked to a lot of people that are deciding a stage of life or like transitioning either out of the military or they want to get into commercial real estate. And you started in the banking side, which I think is interesting. I don't talk to a lot of people who do that. I jumped straight into brokerage to get into commercial real estate. What do you think is the best way if your goal is to ultimately own commercial real estate? Like what job should they try to go get to get themselves in the door?
I don't think of it as I'm going to get a job that's going to allow me to get into real estate. I don't look at it that way. Yeah. The way I look at it is, okay, somehow you came out of the military. What is the skill set that you have? You've got to go make money, right? You got to go be able to feed your family and all that stuff. So go get that job. If it happens to be in real estate, great. If it's not, that's okay too. Whatever your skills are, I don't want that to stop people, right? So get that main thing nailed down. Do that. Then here's the thing I love about real estate, because I did it early on. You do not. I worked 80 hours a week at Deloitte and bought 3 apartment buildings. What does that tell you? That doesn't tell you. I was nobody special, but I was able to carve out a little bit of time when I could. You see, so now you can control the speed at which you do this. You don't need to come out of the military and jump right into real estate, because it takes a minute to make a lot of money in real estate. I mean, you're not going to get rich overnight. Right. $500,000 was a lot in 3 years, and we continue to do really well. But now 27 years later, it's massively paid off. It takes time. And so that's what I want people to do. And I don't know what each person's skill set is. You got to go get the best paying job you can. And there's nothing wrong with getting a job. If you could afford to jump right into the real estate. So a way to do it is to say, okay, I'm going to go buy a 10 or 20 suiter, and I'm going to get some of my friends and family to put the money in with me, and I'm going to manage it. And so I'll get a little acquisition fee. I'll get a property management fee. See, now you're starting to build income for yourself that allows you to not have to rely on another source of income, right? But that's going to take time. It just will. And that's why I did it on the side. That's why most people go to a W-2 job and then slowly work their way out of it.
Yeah.
That's what usually happens.
Yeah.
I wanted to know, because I know you're big into this. Obviously, you're big into multifamily. It's what you've done in your whole career.
Yes. Yep.
Why multifamily? Why should somebody starting out get into multifamily, and why are you so heavily invested into it?
Yeah, great question. So I can't find a better risk return profile. So when I look at so let's assume that I wanted to be in real estate, and it sounds like you're buying industrial single tenant facilities. See, that scares the hell out of me. Why? Because I'm either doing really well or I'm doing really bad. I don't like that binary thing. I just don't like that. So I can make a case for office being weak. Obviously it is right now. I can make a case for retail being weak, self-storage, although everybody thinks nobody gets rid of their junk, but they could if they had to. Self-storage could be weak. I can't figure out how to make it so that people don't need a place to live. Yeah. I have this underlying, you can't really use the word safe in our world, but it's a relatively low risk. So it's the lowest risk asset class that I can find in real estate, while also giving me this wildly diverse set of income, right? I've got 100 people paying me rent. They probably don't all work for the same employer, right? They have a bunch of different employers, a bunch of different industries. And see, now what you see me do, this is the risk averse side of me, trying to mitigate every single risk that I can. So if you look at our track record, you'll see it's not uncommon for us to earn 15, 20, 25, 30, 35% annual returns. Why? If you can do that at a relatively low risk, why wouldn't you do that? Right? We've gotten really good at it. And so the other thing that I've learned in life is when you figure out how to be really good at something, you should stick with it, because you're only going to get better. And your niche, right? I'm niche. That's my niche. We know how to manage our own stuff. We run it very efficiently. And for me to jump into the space that you're in, I would have to learn a lot. And why do I don't want to do that with somebody else's money? That to me, that's just not cool. You should learn on your own money. And then when you're done and you pretty much have a handle on it, then you can go ask other people for money. So we just stay in our lane, and that's why we do it. because I'm risk averse. That's why.
Yeah, well, I think it's important. It's a very important. Like in the beginning, it's okay, I think, to try out different things and learn what you like, and maybe buy an office property, and then maybe buy a multifamily, and then maybe buy industrial. But like you said, you don't want to do that other people's dime. You don't want to learn on other people's dime, so you want to try to do that. We recommend people getting with a mentor or a partner where they can get a little bit of equity for the deal, but learn all these things. But once you do get into that, figure out what you want to buy and then double down on it. Like multifamily, for us, industrial. And, I did multifamily brokerage for a good while before I joined this firm. And it was just such a pain. And I know, but I do understand fully like the attractiveness of that. Like you have 100 units, and even if 15 people decide to vacate, you still got 85 more units and they're all paying you rent. And so it's like, you're likely not going to be having to come out of pocket. Whereas like we were talking about earlier, that industrial deal, it's one space, it's pretty big. And if they move, then we're screwed unless we plan for it, which we will plan for. But the firm we're at now is kind of they're wanting to buy small bay flex is what we call it. So, it might be a 10,000 square foot building with 10 units at 1,000 feet. And the idea behind that is, every business starting out could have 1,000 square feet need, and you can fill that pretty easily. And if someone leaves, you can backfill it very easily, and you can charge more and stuff like that. So we definitely are not targeting single tenant buildings, because I don't like them for the same reason you do. If we could get multi-tenant, it'd be better. But multifamily is definitely attractive. I think everybody, like you said, everybody needs a place to live, and that's not going to change anytime soon. And it's the most affordable. Not everybody can afford a house. Not everybody can afford to rent a house. So, people are there'll always be that tier of people who need to live in an apartment.
And I will also just add this. With some of the properties that they're building now, there's no chance. They're resorts. I mean, have you been to some of these properties?
I lived in one.
They are absolute resorts. Gorgeous fitness centers, outdoor kitchen, outdoor TV, pool. I mean, it just keeps going and going. And there's no way you could create that experience in a single family home. You'd have to be rich to do it. So 100%. It's actually becoming a lifestyle more. It's not just because, if they're doing a lot of the build to rent stuff now. I don't like the straight build to rent, but I love the build to rent if they build in some amenities, because now you have the single family feel and you have the amenities, you have your privacy. It just rocks. So I think it's going to continue to become a lifestyle.
Yeah. Jesse, me and my wife, when we first got married, moved into an apartment complex that was brand new, and there was incentives. So the rent was really cheap for the first time, because we were the first people to move into it. And like you said, it was a small apartment, but it was in RTP, which is like a nice area. And what we were paying was crazy cheap for what we were getting. There's a pool, a gym, all that stuff. Jesse's getting ready to move into a new apartment.
I'm about to move into another apartment
soon. But I understand that appeal. Living in a house, we just had a whole bunch of stuff go wrong, like our HVAC and a roof, and it's like just a pain in the butt. So I understand
it's a money pit. Let's call it what it is.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been extremely insightful. I wanted to ask you one last question. You talked about your course and your education side. So if people want to go buy that underwriting course, where can they find it? And then how much is that? Because that's something I'd be interested in.
Yeah. So the course itself is $997, but so it's, you get all the videos, the whole program. It's all me, right? You get to listen to me a lot. And we have for 6 months, you get once a week Q&A calls, right? Because here's what happens. You're going to go do those spreadsheets. You're not going to understand certain things. And I don't want to abandon you. You bring your spreadsheets to the calls. We review them. Oh, okay. I got it. Right. So you get me for 6 months. It's supposed to be an hour. So it's always 2. In fact, we have one today at noon. It'll go for a couple hours. And so now we get you through the process, because my goal is that you understand how to underwrite. So you're not only getting the course, which you get forever, and you get all the prior Q&A calls for 6 months. So now all those calls that you weren't there for, there's dozens and dozens of them. You get the benefit of that. So that course itself is $997. We have even more comprehensive programs, but in order to get to it, just go to kripartners.com. It's KRI Partners, that's plural, .com, and it won't be hard to find. And then the best thing to do is jump on the phone with one of our people, because they'll help you figure out what it is you're trying to do, because I don't want you just wandering around. We also have a lot of free stuff on that site, free preliminary, intro to underwriting course and stuff like that. Because I want you to, my goal is to help you make good decisions, because if you make good decisions, you're going to make your investors money, and there's a good chance they'll become my investors too.
Yeah. And is that specifically for multifamily?
It is.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, but it'll a lot of the concepts will work with any multi-tenant thing.
Yeah.
But so what we do when we teach people and train people, exactly what we do every day, the same spreadsheets, the same questions that we ask brokers, everything is the same. There's no daylight between what we do now and what we teach you to do, because I don't think that would be fair, right? You're paying money to learn how to really do it. If I change my spreadsheet, I change yours.
Yeah. Guys, if you're listening to this and you've not taken anything away, which I'm sure you have, listen to this one last thing. Pay for education. If you can afford it, pay for it, because Alex Hormozy, who's a massive, business influencer guy, talks about how you can either pay for it, or you can you can pay for it with money, or you can pay for it with time. And it's like, if you can pay for a course like that, how long do you say you've been in real estate for?
27 years.
27 years. Jesse's 27 years old. So, he's been in real estate for as long as Jesse's been alive, and you can pay for that experience for $1,000 and take, you can just, that alone, whether it's Ken or somebody else, you can jumpstart your career. And I couldn't advise it anymore. I've paid for a lot of education. We talk about getting in the right rooms with the right people. So if you're in a space where you can't get into a cool brokerage firm like we're at City Plat, where we're surrounded by investors who are doing deals all the time and learning and taking all that in, one way you can do it is by buying a spreadsheet course or underwriting course. And like you said, underwriting is one of the most valuable skills. So we couldn't recommend that enough. And we're not getting paid to say that either. So we thank you so much, Ken, for coming on here. And if they want to connect with you on social media, where should they find you?
Yeah, we're all over YouTube. KRI Partners. Just search any of the socials for KRI Partners. We've got hundreds of videos on our YouTube channel that,
awesome.
Again, they're designed to teach you and help you understand.
Cool.
I mean, there's so much free stuff that we put out there.
That's awesome.
It'll take you quite a while to get to it. Go to the website, though. There's a lot. There's a free underwriting course. There's a free master class. I'm telling you, when you watch this master class, you will understand why we're in this business, because the amount of money you can make is just ridiculous.
Awesome. Well, go check that out. You don't even have to pay for it. There's free stuff on there. Go check it out and listen to Ken and go follow him. Go follow us. And we thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks, guys.